Okay, well, I'll crack on. Thank you very much for joining. As Justine just said, here really just to give you a quick update on our second nature recovery project through the Evergreen Fund. Yeah, really exciting to have another venture to build on the success of what we're doing at Wildfell. So kind of, yeah, short presentation, just running through some slides, giving you an update, and then yeah, opportunity to ask questions at the end. So yeah, I'd be really keen to take your questions at the end. So yeah, just starting off, just a quick reminder for everyone. Obviously, um, this this project's facilitated by the amazing Evergreen Fund, really unique way that ground control diverts a proportion of its profits into environmental ventures. So 5% of the profits that you guys are all working hard to generate go into our fund. Um, Alongside equity investments, tree planting projects, we've invested in Wildfells 2.5 years ago, and Devana most recently. And yeah, the other really important element of this is the profits which we hope to generate from our investments and potentially the land will all get reinvested back into the fund, so we can do more good for the environment going forward. So yeah, the Devana Centre for Environmental Recovery. The overarching aims are to build on what we're learning and on what we're achieving at a Wildfell. So slightly smaller site, about 100 acres on this occasion, but the objectives remain very much the same. So the key one is maximising that environmental potential of the site. So sort of looking at all the opportunities to generate positive environmental outcomes from this land. So looking at biodiversity, looking at carbon storage for climate change, um, natural flood alleviation, potentially creating flood storage areas, water quality, social benefits as well. So really looking to maximise that potential of the land. Uh, and also leaving that legacy. So, these are projects we're working on that are going to take sort of 5, 10 years really to get well established and start delivering these benefits. But these projects will be around in hopefully in perpetuity, and really just a legacy for everyone that works in ground control can look back in years to come and say, we contributed to these projects and all that they're delivering. Um, Developing and sharing best practice. So Green Gains has been a spin-off from launching Wildfell initially, and that's really a key thing. We're learning, every day about nature recovery, rewilding, natural capital markets, and we're looking at all the opportunities to share that with our clients, other landowners, so that we can really amplify the effect and the learning that we're having. And what we've discovered, or what's been emphasised, is that for nature recovery to work at scale, it needs to provide sustainable revenues for landowners. So it's all very well saying to farmers, right, you need to give up proportions of your land for nature recovery. We need to show that the revenues are there, so that they can continue to farm, and that nature recovery can be part of a viable business. So that's a really important element of what we're doing. So in terms of the location, it's located in South Cambridgeshire, two small villages, West Wickham and West Ratting. It's kind of in a triangle between Newmarket to the north, Haverhill to the south, and then Cambridge to the west. So sits within the county of Cambridgeshire. It's within the South Cambs district, and the Greater Cambridgeshire Shared Planning Area, which covers Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, and the city of Cambridge as well. So combined authorities there, and sits within the South Suffolk and North Essex Clayland national character areas. So the whole of the UK is developed, divided into national character areas, so areas of similar um, landscape character, and Wildfell that you can see just below Devana sits within that same character area. So that is that connection, and it covers a swathe of sort of up towards Bury St Edmunds and then down to the west into Buckinghamshire. And in terms of Cambridgeshire as a location, it's really being intensively developed at the moment, especially around Cambridge. So there's real pressure on natural resources in Cambridgeshire, and also it's been identified as having one of the lowest areas of land dedicated to nature in the UK as well. So we can help contribute to those overarching strategies to they're looking to double land for nature over, I think it's the next 20 years. So yeah, really important for us to have another pilot site in that area. So in terms of the baseline, again, really important, like Wildfell, that we base what we deliver on science. So we're having we've had the habitat baseline carried out by our ecology team, and it's really important to have that baseline so that we can actually turn around in 5, 10, 15 years time, and actually be able to demonstrate the positive impact that we've had through follow-up surveys, monitoring, and reporting. So the majority of the 100 acres is arable land, so the kind of orange hatch through here. 3 main fields, which were barley. The last harvest came off about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We've got some small strips of set aside grassland, the sort of light green areas. There's also some field margins that have been in environmental agri-environment schemes. So a little bit of variety there already. Small area of woodland, much smaller than Wildfell. So really sort of 3 shelter belts along this side. Approximately 30 years old. They just had their first management intervention, again, which we'll look to build on. There's a really strong sort of boundary of native hedgerows around the site, 2.8 kilometers in total. So a few gaps to fill in there, but it's mainly going to be about management for that. Also some dry ditches. So these are ditches that dry out during the summer. They don't run all season, but they run for a good majority of it, and draining through the site here. And in terms of why the name Devana was chosen, there was a Roman road via Devana that passed very close to the site. There's a lot of Roman there was a lot of Roman activity and archaeology in the area, and also sort of linking into the nature. Devana was a Slavic goddess of wild nature, so yeah, really nice sort of tie in, and that's why we've gone for that particular name. Just a couple of images of what we've got currently. So this is one of the woodland belts. There's some areas of non-native conifer in there that we'll look to take out as we look to improve those woodland areas, but you know, giving us some nice structure on the edge of the agricultural land. This is a view out across one of the smaller fields, and indicates we've got, I think there's 4 public rights of way, so footpaths that go through the site. So it's a really good opportunity to bring the local community in touch with or connect with what we're doing on the site. So they've got that public access, so they'll be able to see, you know, how the site changes from an arable landscape to new habitats for nature over time, and be really immersed and involved with that. Um, One of the other arable fields, and you can just see sort of the smaller block of woodland here, another one up here, but really sort of open arable land, very, very low biodiversity value. Same again here with one of the woodland belts in the background, and some of the slightly more interesting grassland in the foreground. So stakeholder engagement really important, as has been with wildfowl. So we've started off with the local community, and the parish council made contact very early on, and they were really keen to find out sort of what we were doing with the site. So initially it was allaying fears. So someone had looked on the ground control website and saw that we maintain car parks, and the rumour mill started, and we were going to build a massive coach park on the land at one point. So hopefully we can improve on that from a biodiversity perspective. But really important to engage with the local community, and we attended a gardening for climate change event a couple of about a month ago, and people were just really keen to see us there, and ask us questions, challenge us, and sort of have their concerns sort of put to rest, really. As I mentioned, South Cambridgeshire Shared Planning is the local authority, which is going to be really important for delivering biodiversity net gain and supporting developments in the area. We'll engage again with the Forestry Commission, looking at grant funding there. The local wildlife trust is, I think, one of the larger ones in the UK, covering 3 counties. So we've started having conversations with them as well, so that we can have a joined up approach for nature recovery. The Environment Agency, again, there could be opportunity for natural flood management, increasing water storage higher up in the catchment through tree planting, hedgerows, etc. RSPB, as they are across the UK, really strong in Cambridgeshire, and I'm really keen to see projects like this being delivered. The Farming and Wildlife Advisory Group, again, we've worked with at Wildfowl. They've had a look around the site, and we've looked at opportunities for pond creation, and again, support with funding for that. And we'll also be engaging with a wider variety of wildlife groups in the location over the next few months. So building off the habitat baseline, so the divided the site up into the existing habitats, which we need for biodiversity net gain projects. You only need an area-based habitat survey as a baseline for biodiversity net gain, but we're keen to sort of go above and beyond that, and have an enhanced baseline. So we're selecting at the moment which protected species we will do surveys on next season, very likely to include bats, birds, reptiles, and a number of the mammal species, pollinators and flora. So again, building off our pollinator collaboration with the Bumblebee Conservation Trust, Plant Life, and the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew at Wildfell. Survey, so looking at carbon in the soil, and also nutrient levels. So we want to bring nutrient levels down, tie up nutrients so they don't get into water courses. We also want to see how our activities are going to reduce carbon emissions from the land by repeated cultivations, and also start to store carbon within the soil. So looking at that element of it. Also the above ground biomass, so that's in all the woody plants that are growing on site. So obviously the trees in the shelter belts, the hedgerows, and see what the current carbon stocks are, so we can look at that over time to see how that is increased, how it's built up, how it's developed. Also, as part of this monitoring of the changing of the site, we've done a series of drone flights over a given flight path, which we'll be able to do over the same flight paths in the future. So almost like a video time lapse. So we'll probably do another one in a couple of years' time when we finish the first round of interventions, and then we can fly those same routes on you know at various points in the future. So we've got a direct comparison of how the site is changing. We've started working on the draft proposals, very early stages at the moment. Obviously, we've got our baseline information in now. So in very broad terms, we're looking at developing and connecting up the existing areas of woodland. So these are the small areas of woodland that we've currently got on site. So connecting those up, expanding those along the sort of western boundary of the site, and also building up on the eastern area where we've got some scrub along this boundary, but there's also a small area of woodland in the adjoining land here, and really importantly, there's an ancient semi-natural woodland up just to the north east of the site, and it's only about 100 meters, 180 meters between our site and that. So it's really important with nature recovery to create those connections, and that will tie in really nicely with a established and valuable woodland feature there. Um, we've also got the sort of purple and blue patch is scrub. So yeah, really important, a rare habitat, sort of transitional habitat, which is why it's so rare, because it generally doesn't get managed. So if it's left, it'll develop into woodland. So it's quite quickly lost. Also, farmers have been incentivized over the years to not allow scrub to develop, because it basically they lose payments, but also it can't be used for agriculture and uh, food production going forward. So it's a really important habitat, and really it's kind of blobs of woody hedgerow shrubs with grass in between. Not particularly technical description, but hopefully, yeah, it gives you that overview of it. And it needs to be managed. So sort of cut back in stages over 5-10 years to make sure that it doesn't start to transform into woodland. Species rich grassland is the light green area. So again, incredibly valuable for biodiversity and all the species that can impact. So sort of two larger areas, again, sort of connected through an area of woodland across here. Also, we've identified locations for 3 to 5 ponds, incredibly valuable for wildlife, and we're sorting out the locations for those currently. Woodland enhancements, so we need to improve the management of the small areas of woodland that we've got retained, and also enhance those existing grassland areas as well. So next steps, we've actually sown all the arable areas with a temporary grass mix, really to start that transition to the other habitats. So get a clean seed bed for future wildflower seeding, start to reduce some of those nutrients down, and manage out any particularly pernicious arable weeds that might have developed over the years. So we'll be managing that over next season. We need to develop our next stage of proposals, the habitat creation proposals, continue with the stakeholder engagement, and really importantly, secure that natural capital funding. And I'll come on to that in a little bit more later. First phase of woodland management. So, for example, plastic tree shelters we use, they should be removed after 5 to 10 years. They're still in evidence there. So one of the first things will be removing and recycling those, and opening up for more volunteer opportunities as well, probably through next year. So that financial sustainability is really critical. We need to demonstrate that these projects are financially viable so that we can then influence other landowners, some of our clients, to go down this nature recovery route. The Forestry Commission grants and carbon funding is well established, well used. We've used it at Wildfell and got a significant grant for the woodland creation at Wildfell. Biodiversity unit sales is going to be critical. It's really a market that is very much at its outset, and was due to come into law in mid-November, that all developments needed, major developments needed to generate 10% net gain. That has been pushed back by the government because they're not ready to January next year, but it is still proceeding and will generate really significant revenues for this type of projects as we see it going forward, and looking at all the other funding opportunities with Natural England for ponds, potentially corporate through their environment, sustainability and governance goals. So potentially looking at getting funding for them to be able to demonstrate there being nature positive. Partnerships, again, really important so that we can really build on what we're doing on one site into the wider landscape. So working with the local nature partnership, Natural Cambridgeshire. There's also the Cambridge Nature Network, which ties in a little bit more with the city of Cambridge. There's the Greater Cambridge Green Infrastructure, so they've identified elements of green infrastructure across the county, and the ancient woodland that I mentioned earlier is part of that. So how we can connect into that, looking to tie in with local farm clusters, wildlife trusts, RSPB, and the Forestry England. And just a nice quote from our North Essex farm cluster around wildlife having no boundaries. We need to work together to connect up land holdings so that we can have that connectivity and allow that transition across land holdings. Just a very quick update in terms of where we are with Wildfell as well. We're into the creation of the species-rich grassland across the site currently. The phase 2 woodland creation will be happening in mid-November. We've got the community orchard going in this winter, along with the scrub and an extra hedgerow planting. We've got another new pond to go in, 2 more ponds to be restored. We'll be starting on the woodland management. We've got the workshop, and the barn is really progressing up there as well. So we'll have some permanent facilities up there from hopefully kind of the end of November. And there's, again, more volunteer opportunities there. And Amanda's sent out, I think, an update via Bob today about planting opportunities for the National Tree Week, which is 27th of November onwards. So yeah, please sign up for that, and it'd be great to see you up there. So yeah, that's just given hopefully an overview of our second exciting project through Evergreen, and really sort of passing it over to you if anyone's got any questions. The first one being, what are those 2 Muppets doing up at Devana? But yeah, over to you. Adam, you got your hand up there, so go for it.
Please. You mentioned at the outset the learns that we had from Wildfell. Is there a top 3, top 5 of, if we were to take away saying owning our land and looking to try and do this, these are the 3 to 5 learns that we learned?
Yeah, I think the main one is taking and utilising that specialist advice. So it's brilliant bringing the Plant Life and the Bumblebee Conservation Trust and Q on board on the pollinators. So it worked really well, sort of taking that specialist knowledge and making sure that we can work through that. I think the transition from arable land and amenity land to species-rich grassland is a challenge and takes time. So we probably need to, manage expectations. It's going to be really valuable and can be done at a wide range of scales, on our client sites. But we do need to manage expectations that it won't be an instant overnight, wildflower meadow, buzzing with pollinators, unless you go down the more expensive sort of wildflower turf route. And I think that sort of collaboration between landowners. So the farm cluster already is getting a 40 odd landowners in North Essex talking about nature and how they can work together. So that's something obviously that we're doing through Green Gains and our clients, but really important to get people talking about nature recovery and how it can be delivered. And also, connecting the dots again with what Matt's team is doing, where you've got a retail site next to a water treatment works or national highways or network rail. Those connections are really important, and we're in a really strong position through our client base to really drive that.
You could also add the community engagement, Chris. Local community and the buy-in has been a massive learning, as much as anything else, and how to manage the food security question and other concerns they may have, like loss of access because developers are coming as opposed to open access.
Yeah, and that community involvement, it is really important. You want buy-in from the local community. You want to be able them to see it as a new asset for them. We had some grumblings from some of the farming community that we're contributing to the food security issue, but really it's a very small proportion of agricultural land that we need to convert to nature. So it's not really going to be having an impact on food security, and we should be looking at really looking at how we can intensify agricultural production on the most productive land, and look to set aside the least productive land that farmers have battled with for years to get a decent crop out of for nature. But yeah, really important to get the buy-in and the involvement of the local community. Justine?
Thanks, Chris. That was really interesting. Is there anything that we can do as a collective group on the call to support Devana and Wildfell, as well as the volunteering opportunities? Is there anything else that kind of you need help with, or you need support with, or connection to, that some of us on the call might be able to help with?
I think it's about the publicising of it. We're doing a really good job through the website and events, but when you're talking to clients, just drop it in there what we're doing, and sort of gauge any interest that they may have in either doing it themselves or coming and seeing what we're doing on the ground. So I think just keep telling the story is the most important one for me, and it is a unique selling point for us as a business, as well as us doing the right thing and actually demonstrating it on the ground rather than talking about it.
Have we got some new videos coming soon that we can start sharing across social media for you?
I'll have to check with my marketing colleagues on that, but I'm sure we will. Yes,
Fantastic.
I know that there's going to be a new webpage for Devana, so we certainly will be able to share those links.
Brilliant, thank you.
Any other questions? There's got to be a couple out there, surely. But...
Yeah, hiya, Chris. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes, yeah.
It's Mike. Yeah. I think you and I took a client to see Little Cowbridge Grange, and we talked about our pledge of Wildfell and Devana to Wild East. Maybe you could let everyone know what the significance of that is, because it definitely helped me with my client when I was developing, because they work with Wild East as well. This is Greater Anglia Trains.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, Wild East is, again, it's a collective of nature recovery projects where people are pledging land for nature recovery, and they have a thing called I think it's called the Map of Dreams. But a number of our clients are signing up to that. Devana, um, Little Cowbridge Wood, and on Wildfell are part of that. But it's regional in East Anglia, but it's anyone that is pledging a proportion of their land to nature can add that. So I'm pretty sure you can add your your back gardens if you're doing a bit for nature within that. I don't think there's a sort of an area cut off. I might be wrong on that, but yeah, it's just part of that broader story showing how lots of different organisations and landowners can work together for nature.
Thanks, Chris. And then just following on what you said earlier as well about how much of a good USP it is. I was on an interesting call with a client earlier where I was battling against a few service challenges, but at the end of the call we talked about Devana, and the whole conversation turned around. It was just, she was like, when can I come and plant some trees? As I said, the whole demeanor, everything changed. So I totally agree. It's a real good one for us, and we should be talking about it on every call.
Great, thanks, Mike.
I think that's it, Chris. I can't see any other hands going up. Does anyone else have any one last question before we wrap up for today? Philip.
You're not allowed to ask a question. You're supposed to be answering them.
I'm going to ask a question because I think it's quite relevant, and that is the bluebell wood is such a more advanced planting scheme, and the species that you're starting to see down there, and the richness that has, even Kim's comment of listening to the bird song, and so it may be anecdotal, but it's evidence based. But it does work, I think, is probably what I'm asking. That when the transition gets going and the time's taken the opportunity to mature, you can see those gains.
Absolutely, and yeah, Bluebell Wood, Little Cowbridge Wood is only 5 seasons into its establishment, and you can really see the impact. So again, that's it's very useful taking people there, in conjunction with Wildfell, because Wildfell, our trees have been in the ground just for 1 season now, but you can show people what they can achieve within a relatively short time, 5 years. Woodland creation is a very long-term undertaking, and the main impacts come in from sort of 10 to 15 years. But yeah, really good to see A, tree establishment, but B, the other habitats that are evolving alongside that, and the real impact that it's having.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Philip, for sharing Devana and Wildfell updates with us today. Very much appreciated. I'm going with my team on the 29th to go and do some tree planting. I'm very excited about the next November. So very excited about that. And anyone else on the call who hasn't signed up yet, get in touch with Amanda and she will pop your name down on the volunteering list. There are still spaces, so still plenty of people to bring along, and it'll be a really good thing to do, particularly as it's 50 years of celebrations this year. So we really want to make sure that everybody is involved as much as possible in planting a tree to get that nature recovery back on track. So thank you very much. Lovely to see everybody, and see you all next week.